The morning began like any other. People went to work. Children went to school. The streets of Earth's great cities were busy and loud. But by mid-afternoon, the sky over half the planet began to change. At first, it was a faint red glow, almost like sunset. Then the color deepened, spreading across the horizon. The red became darker, heavier, until it looked like fire hanging in the clouds. People stopped walking. Cars halted in the streets. Millions of eyes looked up. No one knew what was happening until the first shadows appeared in the glow. They were sharp, geometric shapes, far too big to be planes. They moved slowly at first, but each second they grew larger. The news channels broke into every program. Emergency alerts screamed across devices. "Unknown fleet detected in orbit," one anchor said, her voice shaking. "Stay indoors, shelter in place." But no one could look away. In orbit, the Zevalon Dominion had arrived. To most humans, the name meant nothing. But to those in the military, to the historians and deep space explorers, it was the most feared name in the galaxy. The Zevalon had destroyed civilizations older than Earth itself. They did not negotiate. They did not leave survivors. Galaxies had fallen to them like sand slipping through fingers. Above the planet, their fleet was a nightmare. Massive black ships, shaped like jagged blades, drifted into position. Some were as large as cities. Their hulls shimmered with a dark energy field. Around them, swarms of smaller craft moved in precise patterns. Like insects obeying a silent command, down on Earth, panic began. People flooded the streets. Traffic collapsed. In every city, the sky burned red from the reflection of the alien fleet's energy fields. Police and soldiers tried to keep order, but fear was spreading faster than orders could be given. Far from the chaos, in a quiet dockyard orbiting Mars, an old warship floated in silence. It was not the newest, not the fastest. Its paint was scratched from decades of service. Its engines hummed with a faint, tired vibration. This was the Valiant. Inside the bridge, Captain Elias Kane stood by the main viewport, watching the feed from Earth's orbital sensors. His face was lined with age, his eyes sharp but heavy with memory. He had seen battle before. He had lost friends in the void, but this was different. This was the Zevalon. His first officer, Commander Ria Torres, approached quietly. "Orders just came through from Earth's command," she said, handing him a datapad. Kane read them once. Then again, his jaw tightened. "We're the only ship in position," he muttered. Torres hesitated. "Sir, they're sending us alone." "Yes," Kane set the datapad down. "The fleet is scattered. The closest reinforcements are 3 days away." "That's suicide," Torres said. Kane turned to face her. "It's worse than suicide. It's a delay tactic. We're not meant to win. We're meant to slow them down, give Earth a chance to evacuate." The words hung in the air. The crew had not yet been told. Outside the bridge, the corridors of the Valiant were busy with engineers running final checks. Marines secured weapon lockers. The air felt tense, as if the ship itself knew what was coming. On the main screen, the Zevalon fleet began to move. Their largest ship, a flagship, shaped like a massive spearhead, shifted position. Sensors detected a weapon charging at its core, a weapon powerful enough to crack a planet's surface in one shot. Torres looked at the captain. "Sir, what's the plan?" Kane didn't answer right away. He stared at the spearhead-shaped flagship, its black hull glowing with energy. "Go in," he finally said, "full speed, straight into the heart of their formation. We hit them hard enough to make them think twice. And if they don't think twice..." Kane's lips formed the faintest shadow of a smile. "Then we make them bleed anyway." Minutes later, the ship's alarm klaxons echoed through the decks. Battle stations. All hands to combat positions. The crew moved with grim focus. Gunners ran to their stations. Shield operators strapped in. Engine crews braced themselves in the roar of the drive core. From the forward launch bay, the Valiant's small fighter escort launched into the void, their engines glowing white-blue. They would not survive long against the swarm, but they would. By precious seconds, the old battleship turned toward Earth's glowing red sky. In the distance, the alien fleet loomed like a wall of darkness. Kane stood at the center of the bridge, every movement deliberate. "Helm," he said. "Full burn." The deck vibrated as the main engines ignited. The stars ahead began to stretch. As the ship surged forward, the hum of the engines deepened into a growl. The alien fleet grew larger in the viewport, filling it until nothing else could be seen. On every channel, the Zevalone sent a single message in a cold, metallic voice. "Surrender your world. Resistance is meaningless." Kane leaned forward. "Open a channel." The cum officer hesitated. "To the Zevalone, sir." "To everyone," Kane said. When the channel went live, his voice carried across every human. "Frequency. This is Captain Elias Kane of the Terran defense ship Valiant. You want our world? You'll have to come through me first." There was no reply. The Zevalone didn't negotiate. Instead, the flagship's weapon field flared, and an enormous pulse of energy fired into the void. "Brace," Torres shouted. The shot hit the Valiant's shields with a blinding flash. The ship shuddered violently, metal groaning under the force. Lights flickered. Sparks burst from a console. But the shields held barely, shields at 40%. A crewman yelled. Kane's voice was steady. "Return fire." The ship's heavy cannons roared, launching streams of plasma and railgun slugs toward the flagship. Most shots splashed against the alien shields, but one railgun slug punched through, tearing a glowing scar along the enemy's hull. The bridge crew froze for half a second. No one had ever seen a Zevalone ship take visible damage before. On the alien flagship, movement stopped. Their swarm paused in its perfect formation. "They're surprised," Torres whispered. Kane's eyes narrowed. "Good, let's keep it that way." "Helm, close the distance. Target their weapons arrays." The Valiant surged forward, slipping between 2 enemy cruisers. The crew felt the deck rumble with every exchange of fire. Explosions lit the void. Alien fighters swarmed toward the battleship like a living storm, their weapons cutting glowing arcs through space. Inside the ship, the corridors shook. Marines fired at boarding drones trying to cut into the hull. In engineering, the drive core began to overheat, but the chief engineer refused to power it down. On the bridge, Torres reported, multiple enemy ships on intercept. Flagship's weapon, charging again. Kane stood firm.
"Now forward."
"Guns full spread. Make them choke on our fire." The Valiant unleashed everything it had. Plasma fire lit the darkness. Missiles streaked from their launch tubes. Railguns spat molten slugs at near-light speed. The alien flagship's shields shimmered violently under the assault. Fragments of its black armor breaking away, the crew knew it wouldn't last forever. Their ship was old. Their ammunition was limited. The enemy had numbers beyond counting. But in that moment, none of it mattered. For the first time in living memory, the Zevalone had been forced to stop. The battle was only beginning. But one thing was certain, the humans were not going to make this easy. And in the red-lit sky above Earth, the fight for the future of the species had begun. The debris of battle drifted through the void, glowing faintly in the light of distant stars. The Valiant had survived the first exchange, but the crew knew it was only a matter of time before the Zevalone came at them with everything they had. Inside the bridge, the air was tense, filled with the faint smell of burnt circuitry. But the sound of cooling metal hissed softly behind the constant beeping of damaged systems, Captain. Kane stood with his hands gripping the railing, eyes fixed on the massive spearhead-shaped flagship ahead. It was turning toward them again, the weapon core at its center glowing brighter with every second. "They're charging the main gun," Commander Torres said, scanning the data readouts. "If they hit us full power at this range, we won't survive." Kane didn't flinch. "Then we won't be here when they fire." He turned to the helm officer. "Bring us in close. Right under their forward shields." The helm officer blinked. "Sir, that's inside their kill zone." "Exactly." Kane cut him off. "You can't hit us with the big gun at point-blank range. They'll have to use their secondary weapons, and those are weaker. It's the only chance we have." The order was given.
"Well?"
The Valiant's engines roared, burning hard as the ship lunged toward the enemy. The Zevalan swarm reacted instantly. Dozens of their smaller craft broke formation and raced ahead, weapons blazing. The hull shuddered as impacts rattled the ship, shields flaring with each hit, shields at 32%. A tactical officer shouted, "Keep us moving," Kane barked. The old battleship weaved through the storm of fire. Its own guns answered back, shredding to enemy fighters and forcing the others to scatter. The alien flagship loomed larger and larger until it filled the entire viewport. "Range to target?" Kane demanded. 400 meters in closing," Torres answered. Kane turned to the weapons officer. "Prepare the spinal railgun. We're going to punch through their front plating." The crew worked fast, feeding massive slugs into the railgun's chamber. The hum of the charging coils filled the bridge. The Zevalan flagship's side batteries lit up, sending streams of searing energy toward the Valiant. The deck trembled violently. "Incoming boarding craft," someone shouted over the alarms. On the lower decks, Marines rushed to defensive positions. The boarding pods slammed into the hull like meteor strikes, drills whining as they began to cut through the plating. Inside, one corridor, Sergeant Vale and his squad readied themselves, rifles aimed at the breach point. The moment the metal gave way, a wave of tall, armored Zevalan soldiers poured through, their weapons firing bright, deadly arcs. The humans fought. Back in brutal close-quarters combat, the air thick with smoke and flashes of gunfire, Vale's voice roared over Combs. "They're here for something. They're not just here to kill us." Back on the bridge, Kane heard the report. His eyes narrowed. He already knew what they were after, the vortex core hidden deep in the ships. "Belly dot, double quotes helm, get us into position," he ordered. The Valiant swung upward, skimming along the alien flagship's armored hull. At this range, the two ships were so close the crew could see the enemy's jagged plating and the strange, pulsing lights running through it. "Fire the railgun," Kane shouted. The weapon discharged with a deafening crack. The slug tore through the enemy's forward armor, leaving a massive glowing scar across its black surface. For the first time, the Zevalan flagship had been wounded in an open battle. The alien vessel faltered for only a moment, but it was enough. The Valiant slid past its forward section and dove toward the weaker ventral flank. "Target their weapon conduits," Kane ordered. "If we can disable their main gun, we might live to see tomorrow." The guns roared again, hammering the exposed underbelly. Explosions lit the enemy's hull, sending debris tumbling into the void. But even as the humans struck, the Zevalan adapted, their smaller ships swarming to cut the Valiant off. And somewhere deep inside the ship, in the shadows of the engineering decks, more alien soldiers pushed forward, step by step. Toward the vortex core, smoke filled the narrow engineering corridors, lit only by the flashing red of the emergency lights. The sound of gunfire and alien screeches echoed through the metal halls. Sergeant Vale crouched behind an overturned crate, his rifle hot from firing. Around him, 2 Marines lay wounded. Breathing hard but still alive, the aliens kept coming tall, insect-like shapes in black armor, their weapons firing bolts of white energy that burned through walls and flesh alike. They moved with precision, always advancing toward the same location, the reinforced vault that housed the vortex core. Vale ducked back as another energy bolt scorched the air where his head had been. He pressed his comms button. "Bridge, this is Vale. They're making a push for the core. We can't hold them much longer." On the bridge, Commander Torres gripped the railing. "Captain, if they get to the core, they won't," Kane said. But his voice carried a weight that suggested he wasn't entirely certain. The ship shuddered under another barrage from outside. Multiple enemy cruisers converging on our position, the tactical officer reported. "We're boxed in." "Not yet. We're not," Kane replied. "Helm, bring us into the debris field ahead. I don't care how dense it is." The helmsman glanced back in disbelief. "Sir, that's the old war graveyard. Hundreds of wrecked ships in there. One wrong move, and then don't make a wrong move," Kane snapped. The Valiant turned sharply, engines burning bright as it dived into the dense cluster of floating wreckage. Massive hulls of ancient battleships drifted silently in the dark, their broken frames casting long shadows. Some still bristled with dormant weapons. Others were little more than twisted metal skeletons. Outside, the Xevalon swarm hesitated at the field's edge. Navigating through would mean risking collision with unstable debris. Inside, the Marines kept fighting. Vale's squad fell back. Toward the Corps' blast doors, 2 alien soldiers charged forward, but Vale threw a grenade down the narrow corridor. The blast ripped through their armor, scattering pieces of alien metal across the floor. "Torres," Kane said from the bridge, "seal the bulkheads around engineering. If they get trapped inside with the Marines, fine, but they do not get past that door." Metal barriers slammed into place with a deep clang. In engineering, Vale heard the sound and knew they were cut off from the rest of the ship. On the tactical screen, enemy cruisers began cautiously entering the debris field, their energy weapons firing to clear a path. Kane's lips tightened. "Weapons arm every mine we've got. Let's turn this graveyard into a trap." One by one, old drifting wrecks lit up as the Valiant remotely activated mines and unstable power cores hidden within them. The first Xevalon cruiser didn't see it coming the moment it passed between 2 hulks. Both exploded in a blinding chain reaction. Tearing the alien ship apart, cheers erupted on the bridge, but Kane's eyes stayed cold. Don't cheer. Yet, that was the easy one. In the red-lit corridors of engineering, the alien forces regrouped. Vale's Marines were running low on ammo. He reloaded his last magazine and glanced at the blast door behind him. The reinforced steel felt like the only thing standing between Earth and total annihilation. The aliens didn't need to destroy the Valiant to win. They just needed what was inside that vault, and deep in the shadows. Vale swore he saw one alien, holding something different from the others. Not a weapon, a device. Something that pulsed with blue light, as if it could open the door without a single shot fired. The debris field was a graveyard of ghosts. Shattered hulls floated in the endless. Dark, silent reminders of battles long forgotten. The Valiant moved slowly now, weaving between the twisted metal remains of ships that had died centuries before. Every sensor ping echoed through the bridge like a heartbeat. The crew spoke in low voices, as if afraid to wake the dead. Outside, fragments of broken armor and torn weapons drifted past the viewports. Some pieces were so large they blocked out entire stars. The old battleship's engines pulsed softly, each burn precise, calculated. One wrong move, and they would smash into the jagged wrecks. "Enemy cruisers still on our tail?" Tora said quietly. "They're hanging back, waiting." Kane nodded. "They know this place is dangerous. They'll let us make the first mistake." But Kane wasn't planning on making mistakes. He'd been here before years ago, during the first Belt conflict. He knew every path, every dead end. He also knew which wrecks still had teeth. "Arm the forward mines," he ordered. "We're going to lead them right into the kill zone." As the Valiant crept deeper, sensors picked up movement. It's not the enemy cruisers, something else. Small shapes darted between the wrecks, too fast for capital ships. "Contact!" the tactical officer called. Light signatures, Valen skirmish. "Drones. They're flanking us." Kane's jaw tightened. The cruisers had sent their drones ahead to flush them out. "Bring point defense online." "Keep them off our hull," he said. Gun turrets spun and began firing, streams of tracer rounds cutting across the darkness. The drone zipped and twisted, trying to get close enough to latch onto the Valiant's hull. Every time one exploded, the wreckage drifted slowly, glowing faintly in the dim light. Down in engineering, Sergeant Vale and his Marines were still holding the bulkhead against the alien borders. The strange device the alien carried pulsed brighter now, casting eerie light across the walls. Vale didn't know what it did, but instinct told him it was bad news. On the bridge, Torres monitored the debris ahead. "Captain, we've got a cluster of derelict cruisers forming a choke point. If we go through there..." Kane didn't let her finish. "That's where we make our stand." The Valiant slipped through the narrow passage, hull scraping close to ancient armor plates. Behind them, the first enemy cruiser committed. Following into the choke point, Trigger the mines, Kane said. A heartbeat later, the wrecks lit up with sudden light. Explosions ripped through the field, shockwaves sending debris tumbling. The enemy cruiser took the brunt, its shields collapsing under the chain reaction. In seconds, was nothing but a burning husk, drifting lifeless in space. The bridge crew let out a short cheer, but Kane's expression didn't change. "They'll adapt," he said, "and when they do, it'll get ugly." As if on cue, the sensors screamed. More enemy ships were entering the field, but this time, they weren't alone. A much larger silhouette appeared on the edge of the display. Torres's face went pale. "Captain, it's not a cruiser. That's another flagship," and it was coming straight for them. The larger silhouette grew on the tactical display until it dwarfed every other contact in the debris field. It moved with slow, deliberate purpose, shoving aside smaller wrecks like drifting leaves. The hull was different from the first flagship's leaker, plated in a deep mirror-black metal that seemed to swallow the starlight. On the bridge of the Valiant, the crew worked in tense silence. The air was thick with the sound of beeping sensors and faint static from damaged comms. Kane stood in the center, his eyes fixed on the new arrival. "Signal analysis," he asked. Torres checked her screen. No transponders, no known ID, but the energy signature. "It's bigger than anything we've seen." "They're not here to play," Kane muttered. The enemy fleet was closing in from 3 directions. Kane knew they couldn't fight all of them at once. They needed help, but their long-range cum array had taken a direct hit hours ago. That left only one option: a relay station buried deep in the debris field. "Helm," Kane ordered. "Set a course for relay station for 7B. Get us there fast, but keep us hidden." The Valiant slid deeper into the wrecks, maneuvering between twisted towers of metal. The glow of the alien flagship faded behind them, replaced by the looming shapes of dead ships. Minutes later, the relay station appeared on the scopes of dark, skeletal structure clinging to the side of a derelict dreadnought. It looked abandoned, but Kane knew its core systems could still work if powered. "Dock us," Kane said. The Valiant latched onto the station's docking clamps with a deep, metallic thud. A small team in EVA suits moved across the airless void to reconnect the power conduits. Slowly, the station came alive. Dim lights flickered. Panels HUMMED dot inside the bridge. The comms officer's face brightened. "We've got partial transmission capability. Send an encrypted distress signal to Earth Command," Kane ordered. The message went out in bursts of static. The crew waited, each second feeling heavier than the last. Then, through the hiss of the cum, a voice came back. It was human, but not the calm, official tone they expected. "Valiant, shouldn't be here. Command sent you to slow them down, not stop them. You were never meant to survive." The voice cut out. Silence filled the bridge. The crew looked at each other. Stunned, Torres spoke first. "Sir, what does that mean?" Kane didn't answer immediately. He stared at the cum panel, jaw tight. Finally, he said, "It means we finish this mission knowing no one's coming to save us." Before anyone could respond, the sensors lit up again, multiple Zivalan contacts. Approaching fast, they'd been tracked. The relay station was no longer a safe place. "Cut loose from the dock," Kane ordered. "Weapons online. You hold them here long enough to get one last message out, one they can't ignore." In the corridors below, Sergeant Vale and his Marines heard the alarms. The alien boarding party was still active, and that strange device they carried now pulsed faster, as if it sensed its time was near. What no one on the Valiant yet knew was that the Zivalan weren't the only threat closing in. "If you want, I can move right into Episode 6's opening, where the Valiant boards a damaged Zivalan cruiser and learns the terrifying truth: the aliens are fleeing something far worse. That would make the twist hit hard for your audience. Would you like me to do that next?" The battle outside the relay station was chaos plasma bolts, streaking through the void. Railgun slugs tearing chunks from drifting wrecks, the Valiant weaving desperately to avoid being pinned. But in the middle of the exchange, one of the Valiant cruisers faltered. Its shields flickered. A plume of atmosphere vented from its side, spinning it slowly in the debris field. On the bridge, Torres caught it instantly. "Captain, that cruiser's crippled. It's losing power." Kane didn't hesitate. "Helm, bring us alongside. Prepare a boarding party." The crew stared at him. Boarding a Xevalon ship was suicide. No one had ever come back alive. But Kane's voice left no room for argument. Within minutes, a team of heavily armed Marines, led by Sergeant Vale, crossed the short gap between the two holes in a docking umbilical. The air inside the alien cruiser was heavy and hot, lit by a deep crimson glow from its emergency lights. Every surface was covered in strange, black metallic ridges that seemed to pulse faintly under their boots. Vale's voice came over the comms. "Bridge, we're in. No resistance so far. This feels wrong." They moved deeper, weapons raised. The corridors twisted unnaturally, more like tunnels inside a living thing than hallways on a ship. Occasionally, they passed the bodies of alien crews burned, others torn apart by something sharp. "Looks like they've been fighting each other." One Marine whispered. Vale tapped his helmet cam. "Sending visuals now." Kane watched the feed from the bridge, his frown deepening. This wasn't normal Xevalon behavior. They were disciplined, united. Something had broken that unity here. In the cruiser's command chamber, the Marines found the ship's core system still online. Torres patched in remotely, pulling encrypted data. It took minutes to crack, and then the screen lit with images that didn't match any known enemy. A massive, artificial structure filled the frame bigger. Then a moon covered in black spires and a lattice of glowing lines. It was moving through space, swallowing asteroids, ships, even small moons, stripping them down to raw metal. "What is that?" Torres breathed. Kane's voice was grim. "It's not a ship. It's a machine world." As the data stream continued, the Xevalon had lost entire fleets to it. The destruction was absolute, no debris left, no survivors. The last entry was a desperate fleet order. "Flee to resource-rich systems. Gather what you can before it comes." Torres looked at the captain. "They invaded us, because they're running from this thing." Kane nodded slowly. "They're not here to conquer Earth. They're here to strip it before the machine gets here." Vale's team continued searching the cruiser, but their time was running out. Sensors warned of incoming Xevalon reinforcements. Kane gave the order to pull out, but Vale lingered in the alien command chamber for one last glance at the data. That's when he noticed a strange symbol burned into the wall, a perfect circle with 3 jagged lines inside it. The same mark. He realized that was on the device the boarders had carried into the Valiant. He didn't know what it meant yet, but something told him that mark was connected to the machine-world. The first warning came as a low, almost inaudible hum in the Valiant sensor array. At first, the crew thought it was interference from the debris field. Then the hum grew into a deep, resonant vibration that they could feel through the deck plates. On the tactical display, a new contact appeared, so massive it didn't fit entirely on the screen. The edges of the icon kept expanding as the sensors updated. No one spoke for a long moment. Torres was the first. "Captain, it's the machine world." Out in the black, the thing emerged from behind a shattered moon. It was impossibly large, a continent-sized sphere of metal covered in jagged towers and rotating rings. Strips of blinding light pulsed across its surface in perfect patterns, like a heartbeat. The crew fell silent, each of them staring at the feed. The machine world moved slowly, but with a terrible certainty. Anything in its path, asteroids. Derelicts vanished into its surface, torn apart by swarms of smaller drones. "They're harvesting," Kane said quietly. Everything, the Xevalon fleet reacted instantly. Dozens of ships broke away from their positions around Earth and the debris field, burning hard to escape the system. The crippled cruiser that Vale had boarded self-destructed, erasing any trace of its data. "Sir," Torres said, "if they get away, they'll take whatever resources they've gathered. Earth won't stand a chance when this thing arrives." Kane's hands gripped the railing. Could order pursuit, try to cripple the Xevalon, and keep their stolen resources here. But that meant leaving the machine world unchecked. The tactical officer spoke up. "Captain, the machine's path puts it on a direct intercept with Earth in 23 hours. Kane made his decision. We're not running." Helm set course to intercept. Going to turn that thing before it gets anywhere near the planet. The bridge crew looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Torres spoke carefully. Sir, we don't have enough firepower to destroy something that size. We don't have to destroy it, Kane said. We just have to trap it, he turned. 2. Engineering on the come. Prep the vortex core for a maximum overdrive jump. We're going to use its gravity field to pull that thing into a collapsing star. In the lower decks, Sergeant Vale listened to the order in stunned silence. The vortex core was unstable at the best of times. Overdriving, it could tear the ship apart before it even made the jump. And yet, nobody on the Valiant objected. They all knew there was no other way. Outside, the machine world shifted its focus. Its lights flared, and a deep bass tone rumbled through space. Thousands of small drones broke away from its surface and streaked toward the Valiant like a cloud of metallic locusts. Kane watched them come. Battle stations. All hands braced for contact. We're about to do something no one has ever tried. The hum of the core deepened. The Valiant turned to face the impossible. The Valiant shook as the first wave of drones slammed into its shields. Plasma fire lit the darkness, turning the void into a swirling storm of blue and white light. Hull plating rang like a struck bell, and the air smelled faintly of ozone as the ship's systems strained under the assault. Shields at 60%. Torres shouted over the alarms. Keep firing, Kane ordered. Helm, bring us closer. We need the course field to lock on. The machine world loomed larger on the view screen at surface, a moving landscape of machinery. Towers shaking and reconfiguring. Great panels opening to reveal massive energy weapons that began to charge. The Valiant dove low, skimming the machine's outer shell. A swarm of drones broke against the ship's hull like waves on rock, their bodies sparking and tumbling away into the void. Vale and his Marines held the hangar against boarding attempts, firing into the mass of crawling. Machines trying to cut through. Cores at 90% overdrive, engineering reported. Any more, and the containment field's going to fail. Hold it together, Kane said. Just a few more seconds. The plan was insane. Hook the vortex core's artificial gravity well to the machine world, and drag it toward a collapsing star at the system's edge. But the calculations were exact. If they could hold the link long enough, the machine wouldn't be able to escape the pull. Target lock achieved, Torres said, sweat running down her temple. Initiating gravitic tether, a deep, bone-shaking thrum filled the ship. Stars outside warped and twisted. The machine world shuddered, its glowing lines flickering erratically as it began to drift not away from Earth, but toward the distant point of light that marked the dying star. The machine resisted. Massive cannons opened fire, and the Valiant's shields screamed under the impact. Drones swarmed thicker than ever, and in the engine room, warning lights flared crimson. Containment breach in 30 seconds. Engineering yelled. Kane's voice stayed calm. All hands, brace for jump. The tether pulled harder, the Valiant's hull groaning as space itself stretched. The collapsing star flared ahead. Its gravity and the cores combined into a monstrous pull. The machine world's surface split open, revealing a massive central aperture, single cyclopean eye of blue-white energy. It fired. The beam tore through space, missing the Valiant by only meters. But the shockwave sent the ship spinning. Vale slammed into a bulkhead, his visor cracking. He dragged himself up and looked toward the hangar doors just in time to see one of the drones stop. Fighting it simply stood there, scanning him. Then, with a burst of static, it projected a small, flickering hologram into the air. A human face, not alive. It's not quite more like a recording. Distorted, but still clear enough. The voice was faint, but Vale heard the words, "It's not what you think. We built it." Before he could react, the tether reached critical pull. The Valiant and the machine world vanished into the collapsing star's event horizon in a flash of white light silence. Hours later, in the cold emptiness of space, a single distressed beacon drifted free of the wreckage. Its signal was weak, but it carried one repeating message. We were trying to stop something worse.